Afternoon all. So done another busy wee day, interesting wee day around Glasgow, trying to catch up with some people and get a few inspirational kind of stories, because I decided to make a YouTube channel because Matthew's got one, my son, my oldest boy, and I love it. And I found it it wasn't like by chance. Callum said something, Dad, Matthew's on YouTube, and I was like, oh no, what's going on here? And he's got a great wee video of him catching geckos, and I love watching it because it's brilliant, the gecko catcher. So I've made a YouTube channel. My mate said, that's a great idea, do that, YouTube, and record just instead of using your Facebook, it's got maybe a wider audience eventually if people subscribe to it. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. Hopefully they will, if I can find some interesting content. So another busy day out on the bike, walking up around the West End, catching up with, a friend of mine, had a few coffees, and I'm waiting on hopefully some good news coming in, about a project I'm involved with. So we're waiting on good news, and if it comes in, big deal, big deal for me, but here's hoping. The right man's on the job anyway, and it won't be for lack of trying. So I was telling him a funny story, and I've never really, I think I've said it to a few folk over the years when they've needed a wee bit of inspiration, and it goes back to when I was a young guy before I joined the Royal Marines, and I was about 17 and a half or something, thereabouts, and I was an apprentice mechanic, doing a job didn't understand. I wasn't naturally mechanically minded, and I was never going to be a good mechanic. I'm just not that way inclined. But at the time there was no work, there was no jobs. You do whatever's in front of you to get by. That's where a lot of people get wrong, because they say, I'm not doing that, I wouldn't do that. Just do it. If you do what you need to do to get on in life, do what you need to do. I've always stuck by that, and you'll never have an idle week. So I'm trying to be a bit more upbeat today, because I was a wee bit subdued yesterday thinking about a lot of those poor people up at George Square. And I'm still thinking about them, and there'll be more of that to come. But I'm trying to put a different spin out today. So when I was joining the Royal Marines, I had considered, just to myself, joining the French Foreign Legion. I had seen in a book French Legionnaires in their kepi leblancs, which is the hat, the kepi, the famous kepi, doing the slow march. Royal Marines march to a different beat from the British Army and stuff. They march to a slower beat. It's a lot more intimidating. And so do the French Foreign Legion. A fantastic body of men, very highly regarded these days, tough. There was always the romanticism around the Legion about, you commit a murder and you escape to the Legion and they ask no questions. It's just not like that. In the last 20 odd years, it's an infantry, highly organised, highly skilled outfit. And I had considered doing it, so I had wrote away to the induction centre in Marseille and tried to get the invite or more information, because you can't find it in Glasgow, and we didn't have the internet then, we didn't have phones, so everything then was done manually, the hard way, the good old detective work. So the French Foreign Legion, I was like, I'm going to do that, and I never told them they were just going to go. I was a young guy and I wasn't enjoying what I was doing, so I was in a pub and I was talking to this guy, and he said, aye, my mate joined the Legion, and my ears pricked up, and I said, right, tell me. He was this and he was that, and he went away, and he says, I never seen him again for like 7 years. And then he came back and he was fluent in French, and he'd loads of money, and and he was a different guy, and he was a bit hardcore and stuff, and he wanted to do some great things in life. And I was walking down Queen Street, and I was just walking around, and I'm like, 18, and I'm thinking, I'm looking up, and I saw this sign for the parachute regiment. The Paras are friends in the Paras, and I saw it, British Army parachute regiment, 1 para, 2 para, 1st Battalion, 2nd Battalion, in the maroon beret, the famous maroon beret. And I was like, parachutes, jumping out of planes. At that time in my life, I wasn't scared of heights, wasn't scared of anything. I'm scared of heights now, believe it or not. I don't know why. You develop anxiety the older you get. You start to get scared of stuff. So I'm not scared of them, I'm respectful of them. So, no, I'm scared of them. So I went to go in, and I looks in the window, and I sees this fat bloke sitting, fat sergeant sitting, stuffing his face. And what you wanting? Crumbs everywhere. What you wanting? Beat it, come back in an hour. It's like, who are you talking to? Fat boy. So I was like, let me in, open the door. And I says, I want to join the paras. And he's like, aye, 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Right, cheeky bat, right? So I was annoyed. So I went, aye, okay. So I walks down the road. Next door. What's this? Royal Navy, Royal Marines, Commandos. That sounds a bit better than the Parachute Regiment. Commandos, what do they do? Never had a clue. I wasn't one of these young guys that was into the army and soldiers and tanks and posters. I never had a clue. Right? But what I did know was that I was slightly different from my mates. I was a bit more... I kind of knew there was something in me that was just different from 95. I had a different type of drive. And the guys like Andy Whiteford would say, you're nuts, because they'd drop me off at the Hullet and I would race them in a car to Neilston, and they'll tell you a story about one of the times I bet him, and that's a true story. And so I always knew there was this adventure in my head, and the drive was there. So I rattles their door, and they say, this guy looks at me, he's a lot sterner than Fat Boy, 2 doors up, and he looks me up and down. He's like, what are you waiting for? I said, nothing. And he walks in. What can I do for you? I says, I'd like to join the Marines. He went, oh aye. He went, oh good. He's like, pull up bar in the doorway. He says, up you get. I says, aye, okay. Jumps up in the pull up bar. Cracks out the, I don't know, 15, 20 pull-ups, whatever it is. He's like that. I was fit, I was strong, fit, doing a lot of running, and he's like, give us your details, dum-da-dum-dum. What do you know about the Marines? What do you know about Corps history? I never knew what he went. The Royal Marines, the Corps of the Royal Marines is what they're called. I never knew what that meant. I says, I don't know anything about them. And he laughed and he went, oh aye. He says, are you just one of these nutters for Glasgow then? I said, well, no. I says, but, you know, I can be if you want me to be. So he laughed and did the paperwork. Not long after, the stuff lands. And I decided that was it. So I was off ski. And I was away. And I went to Limpston on a train from Neilston, Boyfair Village, never had a clue. Got into Glasgow Central, met some other young Marines. I was the only person from my area that done it. Met a couple of boys from Paisley, and we went to Devon, to the Commando Training Centre at Limpston, CTCRM, Commando Training Centre, Royal Marines, a world famous place. We got off the train, long train journey, 15, 16 hours, down to the West Country. You get off, you've got a shirt and tie on, you've had a short haircut. You get off with your suitcase and you're met on the platform at Limpston in the dark by a man who was the colour sergeant drill instructor called Keith Stannard. I still remember Keith Stannard. I don't even know if he's alive, or he'd have been long gone now, because he was a colour sergeant then. A sergeant or a colour sergeant. And you get off and you're like, all right mate, and he's like, don't fucking talk to me, and he just starts, and you're instantly, I could be a bit more dramatic, but you're instantly traumatised, because you realise you're like, I'm in a world of shit here, what have I done? Oh no, I need to go back, the train's leaving. You can't jump back in the train because it's off. So he took us up to the, he marched us up to the induction block, and then they begin the process of terrorising you for the next few months, and taking you from being somewhere that's used to staying in your mum's and, you know, doing your own routine to basically almost dehumanising you and deprogramming you and starting you again and conditioning your mind to the ways of the Royal Marines. They're very, very different to any other service, and I won't go in for the old competition who's the best. I'm always going to be biased that they are the best. I've got great friends in the paras, but even they agree that the Royal Marines are the best. David McGrath might disagree, but we'll see. So that was the story of joining, and the rest history. You know, I did successfully pass out and of training. But the interesting part of the story is that prior to me leaving, when I had said to a few people in Neilston, in a certain pub that I drank in then as a young guy, that I was going to join the Marines, every single person was negative towards me. All of them. And to this day they'll know who they are. I never ever chased them up for the bets and the bottles of, you know, Morgan spiced and stuff that I was promised if I made it in the, you know, the endless number of bets that I took. But they were all negative, and they all said, you've got no chance. You're too wee. You're not strong enough. You know, we know big guys this size that went and tried it and failed and didn't last a week and stuff like that. And I know big guys that were built like bears and didn't last a week. I know all of these things. But it's not the size, you know, of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And that's why you learn to be as an underdog, where you're written off before the whistle's even been blown for the race. You're getting written off that you're going to come in last place. That's an energy. That's an energy. It's a fuel. It's a fuel to the fire. And I was told, you've got no chance. You'll never do it. What are you doing that for? This is what you do. All the experts, all the pub experts sitting. You join the army first and you go in the back door and you do this and you do 5 years in the army and then you go to the Marines or the Paras or the SAS or the SBS. That's not the way to do it. You know, and I was like, all right, okay. No, I'm going straight to the top. I'm going straight to there. I'm going through that door. And two things drove me. 20 years ago, two things drove me. One of them was embarrassment. So the thought of failure, the fear of having to go home to a village where most people know you and say, nah, it wasn't for me, I didn't do too well, I got injured, and make up the sob stories and stuff. So I decided, I'm going to do that or it's going to kill me. I'm going to get that green beret or it's going to kill me. There's no other answer, there's no other exception, there's no bend in the rule, there's nothing. It's that or it's nothing. And then I had to say to myself, well, if I don't successfully pass out, commando training's 9 months long. It's the longest infantry training in the Western world, if not in the whole world, for an infantry soldier. And I said, if I can't do this, I can't go home. I can't go home because it's got to be too bad. You couldn't walk back into the pub and say, I come back, guys, you know, 6 weeks down the line, it didn't happen, it wasn't for me. I couldn't do it. I was a young guy, I was naive. So embarrassment drives you. And the other thing is who you are as a person. So you've had all the negativity, you've been written off, you've been told by experts in pubs that are older than you that you've got no chance. Because, you know, their big mate Joe never made it, so you've got no chance, basically. And I decided, well, we'll see about that. Because although we drink together, and although you might see me on a Saturday night being a bit drunk, a bit wild, and you don't know me. So, there you go. So, I did it, went brilliant, best years ever, met some fantastic guys that were still in, great timing, some great tours, great guys. Brilliant. I loved it. I would recommend it to any young guy. I don't believe in national service because everybody's different. I don't believe in that at all. It's not the answer, but I do believe that young guys of a certain ilk should go. They should go on that journey. It's a great journey. it answers a lot of questions about yourself. I was only ever in competition with me. I had to test myself. I still test myself 20 years later. Give myself a test running up a hill here and there, or, you know, seeing if you've still got the mettle for it. So the Foreign Legion idea it got sidestepped for the Royal Marines, not a decision that I regret. And I got the opportunity to work with Foreign Legionnaires during my time in the Marines, and we worked together in France, and I worked with guys from Tourette, the elite parachutists. Fantastic. There's Spaniards, there's Moroccans, there's Algerians, there's Germans, there's Americans, there's entire battalions of Foreign Legions. Get such a varied, it's got such a variation in ethnic backgrounds or creeds, colours, whatever you want to call it. Just a fantastic body of men. They've got some incredible traditions as well, and they're tough, durable, resilient guys. So I did get to work with them eventually, and had some great times with them and some great relationships with the guys. But like everything in life, you move on, you lose touch, phone numbers, I also met some great Royal Marines that started their lives as Foreign Legionnaires, French Foreign Legion. So a guy from Cumbria was always very dark and quiet. A guy called Steve Mossop, he was a Legionnaire. I always remembered him. He was quite a calculating, cold, kind of efficient guy. You know, he commanded respect. He had the background of the Legion. He'd been operational in places in Africa and stuff, and did his training up in Djibouti and places like that. Just tough, you know. And I told him that story, and he just looked at me one day, and he kind of said something that always stuck in my head about, why would you ever listen to a drunk in a pub, you know, telling you what you can and can't do. Yep. So I'll never forget it. It was a funny story. It's funny how things happen, and it just, I've told one or two people that story over the years, and I was in touch with a young guy from Barhead who had joined the Royal Marines a few years. He'd been messaging me, I've heard you were in the Marines, can you give me some advice? Yep, go for it. That's my advice, go for it. If you think you've got it, go for it. And that young guy is, should I say his name? Yeah, I'll say his name, you'll not mind. Max Nutini. Max from Al Nutini's son from Barhead. Max is a brilliant guy. He's a brilliant young guy, heart of a lion, ultra fit. He's a fantastic Marine. I know guys that were in from my day that are sergeant majors and stuff, and they've got great respect for Max as a young Marine. He's doing fantastic things, and he's about to transition, and he's about to go a step further. He's about to go a little further. For those that know. Max is going for it, and I wish Max all the best. It's brilliant to hear from him, and that he's doing really well. So Max went for it. So if anybody else is thinking about going for it, do it. Or you're thinking about starting a little business or opening a little shop or doing a little thing, do it. Don't listen to anybody. Everybody's full of negativity. They all want to tell you no because they're scared. So just do what you've got to do and get on with it. And that's the story for the day. A wee bit more upbeat than the other day, but being told no is the fuel. Use it as the fuel. Use it as the energy. And if someone says that's never going to work, well, until you know, you don't know. So stop listening to those around you telling you can't do something. They're all full of mince. Alright, well, that's the day. Enjoy your night.